If you work at a daycare or you run an in-home daycare, you might wonder, do I actually need a food handler's card or is it just a restaurant thing? The answer isn't a simple yes or no, and that's where a lot of confusion comes from. So in this video, I'm going to clear it up and walk you through when daycare workers need a food handler card, when food safety training is still required even without one, and when food manager certification comes into play. I'm Gavin, a registered dietitian and the program administrator for FoodSafePal, a nationally recognized food handler card issuer. I spend a lot of time reviewing state and local food safety requirements, and daycare rules are one of the areas people get wrong most often. Here's where the confusion starts. Food handler cards are usually associated with restaurants, coffee shops, and grocery stores. Because of that, many people assume daycares are exempt, but in most daycares, staff are preparing and serving meals and snacks every single day. And once food is being handled and served to others, especially to young children, food safety rules apply even if the setting isn't a traditional restaurant. So the real question becomes, when does a daycare worker actually need a food handler's card? The short answer is, it depends on where you're located. Food handler card requirements vary by state, and in many cases by county or local health department. On top of that, some states treat daycare workers differently than restaurant workers, even when they have a statewide food handler card law. For example, Illinois and California both require a food handler card at the state level, but they apply those rules differently to daycares. In Illinois, workers in licensed daycare homes and facilities are required to hold a valid food handler's card. In California, daycare workers are not specifically required to have a food handler's card, the way restaurant workers are. Now, that doesn't mean food safety training is optional. Even in states like California, where a food handler card isn't explicitly required for daycare workers, there are still food safety expectations. California requires that at least one director or teacher at each daycare center has documented training in safe food handling, and completing an approved food handler course can meet that requirement. So while the card itself may not be required in every case, some form of food safety training often is. And there's an important reason for that. Young children are considered highly susceptible to foodborne illness. They're more likely to get sick, and they're at higher risk for severe symptoms or hospitalization. Also think about the increasing prevalence of food allergies, a very important aspect of food safety training. Because of that, food safety standards for daycares are often stricter than people expect, even when the laws aren't always clear. There are also several states that do require a food handler card statewide, regardless of setting. So in most cases, earning an approved food handler card is the simplest way to cover your bases. Most health departments only recognize food handler cards from programs that are accredited by the ANSI National Accreditation Board, or ANAB, like FoodSafePal's. You can confirm that by checking for the ANAB mark on the card or certificate. It's also worth mentioning that food handler training is designed for retail food workers, so not every topic applies directly to daycare settings. That said, the core food safety principles still matter, and everything covered in the course can appear on the exam. Most food handler cards are valid for 3 years or 2 years if you live in Texas. Renewal follows the same process as the first time. Enroll in an approved course, complete the training, and pass the exam again. Now, what about food manager certification? In most daycare settings, it's not required. Food manager certification usually only comes into play for larger facilities or programs connected to schools that provide on-site meal service. And even when it is required, it typically applies to just one person in the supervisor role, not every staff member. So here's the bottom line. Daycare food safety requirements depend on where you're located, but many daycare workers either need a food handler card or documented food safety training. If you want the simplest way to meet those expectations and avoid any issues with the health department, earning an approved food handler card is often the safest move. To get started, head to FoodSafePal.com.